Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reaction to the Imola Grand Prix. And my goodness, an interesting one. A very interesting one. I feel some will say that's a very boring one. And for certain sections of the race, I would agree, yes it was. But towards the end, my goodness, how it heated up towards the end of the race there and kind of laid out what we could be dealing with for the remainder of the season, especially the remainder of the European leg of this season, as McLaren, especially in the hands of Lando Norris, seem to be there or thereabouts with the Red Bull. Ferrari not too far off. Let's get into it then with the race. Like and subscribe, firstly, of course, that is the rules. But it was Max Verstappen on pole alongside Lando Norris, P2. Oscar Piastri has a free place grid penalty for the impeding of Magnussen in qualifying. Not a huge shocker, to be honest. I think we all expected that one to come along. Alonso is starting from the pit lane. Yet again, not a huge shocker. Didn't have, he qualified last. The Aston really not working well for him at all yesterday. So the fact that they want to change the setup and try something different does not come as a huge surprise. As for tyres, we got Perez, Zhou and Sargent on the hards, Gasly and Alonso on the softs, everyone else on the mediums. On the grid, Verstappen pointed very aggressively to the right. This mainly because I don't really know which is the best side to be on for the pole box for Imola, because the racing line goes through the right-hand side, whereas the pole is on the left-hand side. I imagine to kind of maybe have the inside line going into turn one proper. So it's a bit of a weird one, but he has to really go right to defend Norris, but also to be just in the right direction from the grid. He gets away well and does manage to keep the lead. Leclerc is alongside Norris going into turn one, but is unable to get that position. For a lot of the start of the race, it is very much Max has got a gap, then it's Norris who's got a gap. Then it's Leclerc, and then it's Sainz and Piastri. And Sainz very much clings to the back of Leclerc with that DRS to protect himself from Piastri. But eventually Leclerc breaks the DRS and Sainz has to defend from Piastri on his own, which is a battle that lasts a very long time, starting around about lap 6 or 7. Alonso pits from the softs on lap 8 to the hards. This is where we see a lot of guys pitting for the first time. Albon, Gasly and Bottas all pit around about lap 9. Albon, though, going very slow. He says that his tyre was not on properly. Now, it doesn't seem like it was completely off. It doesn't fall off the car, go flying like we saw in Formula 2 this morning. The Formula 2 recap video is available on the channel now. But it seems like maybe the wheel nut was not fully tightened. It wasn't fully on there. So he was going very slow all the way around to pit again and get out once more onto the mediums. Ricciardo also pits, as does Yuki. Alonso, we see a replay of him coming out of the pits and his brakes spitting flames out on the front left. So yeah, the Aston really not working well for him at all this weekend. Hulkenberg also pits on lap 14. And this is when we start to see something which is a bit of an issue I've noticed with the McLaren. Because the McLaren, since these Miami upgrades, is very good and is a very fast car. But it does seem it doesn't necessarily have the straight line speed. We saw it in Miami and we're seeing it here today. In Miami, when Norris was behind Perez, he couldn't get past. He was stuck behind him lap after lap after lap because I don't think the McLaren has the straight line speed. It's very fast through the corners, but in a straight line, I don't think it's that fast. And we saw it again here with Piastri and Sainz. Piastri is consistently faster than Sainz, is all over the back of him, but can't get past. Because I just think that the likes of your Ferrari and your Red Bull have that straight line speed that the McLaren does not have. And I think if it was the other way round, with the Ferrari behind, and we see this later on with Leclerc and Norris, I think with that, it was very much on the straights, the Ferrari was able to get there, but I think because this track only had one DRS section, that really aided the McLaren. Because I think if you have a track like, say, in Australia, with 3 DRS straights, and the Ferrari is behind a McLaren, the Ferrari is going to get past because it has that acceleration, it has that straight line speed. Because it was just the one, that's your one chance of overtaking, then you have to wait an entire lap where the McLaren will be faster. We'll talk about this more later on when Leclerc is behind Norris. Perez has an off through the gravel on lap 18. Then it's a few more pit stops. We get Russell and Norris pitting on lap 22 for the hards. 10-second penalty for Alexander Albon for the car leaving the pit in an unsafe condition. Norris comes out from his pit stop right behind Sergio Perez, who is yet to pit, and I really thought they would make Perez defend a bit harder, but he really doesn't. Piastri pits on lap 24, and then Norris is right behind Perez with ease on that exact same lap. I don't know if it was maybe Perez wasn't able to defend, or maybe Red Bull did not expect the kind of threat that Norris would bring, because if they did, I think Perez would have made a far greater effort to keep Norris behind him. I don't think they would make that mistake again. Verstappen pits on the lead on lap 25. Leclerc follows in on lap 26 for the hards. Personally, I feel this was a bit too early. I think if Ferrari wanted to attack the McLarens or the Red Bulls, I think they had to go and stay out longer and have that tyre advantage at the end of the race. They pulled it in a little bit too early here, and they were on the same level as everyone else, and their car was not as fast today. Leclerc in on lap 26, Sainz in on lap 27, Hamilton also in on 27, Albon pits for a third time on lap 31, Sargent on lap 32, Zhou lap 34, Perez finally pits on lap 38, and it was Stroll on lap 38, and Magnussen as well on that lap as well. Magnussen going very, very far on the medium tyres. Alonso pits yet again on lap 42. Not a good day for Alonso whatsoever. On lap 43 of 63, Leclerc finally has DRS on the back of Norris. And like I said before, when he's in that straight, that start-finish straight going into turn 1, he was cutting chunks out of the McLaren. But because it's such a long wait then to get on another long straight, the McLaren was able to go out again. And Leclerc was cutting away, but in the end, I think it just took far too much out of his tyres, and also he had a bit of a run-off over the chicane at one point, which would have cut some time away from there and cut the DRS off. Like I said before, on a track where you have multiple DRS zones, I think the Ferrari beats the McLaren. But it didn't happen here. It'll be interesting to see in Monaco next week. I think, of course, that's always about track position, but I think a McLaren in Monaco, I think, is going to be incredibly powerful because it's just going to be that much harder to overtake. I think if it's stuck behind someone, it's going to struggle, but if it can get in that free air, it's going to do very well. Stroll passes Yuki Tsunoda, that's on lap 51 for P9. Now, Russell pits on lap 53 for mediums. I thought they were going to pit for the softs, because there are only 10 laps to go. Apparently, Russell was really struggling on his tyres. He really just gave a position away to Hamilton, although there was some discussion that there'd been an agreement that Hamilton would give the position back. He doesn't. I don't think he should, because he was about 13 seconds ahead. So not really sure what was going on there for the Mercedes. Albon finally retires the car on lap 54. To be fair, I'm surprised he went that long before retiring the car. And then on lap 55 of 63... Lando Norris starts gaining on Max. Lando was complaining of a lack of pace throughout the second half of the race, but towards the end, the pace really came to him and he closed in really well on Max. Personally, I never saw him really in a chance of beating Max, no matter how close he got, just because we've seen so many times during this race how difficult it was to overtake somebody, even when you're a few tenths behind him. It's difficult to overtake. We saw with Piastri and Sainz for nearly half the race. Piastri had the pace over Sainz, but was not able to overtake him. So, it's that old thing of catching is one thing, passing is another. So even though Lando closed in on Max, I never really felt that Lando was in with a chance of winning this race. Alonso pits again for the softs now on lap 61 of 63. I guess going for the fastest lap. He didn't get it. I don't really know what was happening there. But we crossed the line and Max Verstappen does take the win. Lando Norris in P2, only 7 tenths behind Max. This is incredible stuff, really, because when you think about it, before Miami, I think Max's average winning margin was 15 seconds. since Miami, we've seen him finish second and now win by 7/10 of a second. The grid very much going in the right order in terms of challenging the Red Bulls. The McLarens look like they're there. The Ferraris, they weren't quite there. Leclerc finishing in third, Sainz in fifth. The Ferraris weren't quite there, but they're not too far off. I think they're going in the right direction as well. Piastri was fourth. Like I said, Sainz fifth. Hamilton and Russell, just in a race of their own, really, sixth and seventh. Perez with an okay comeback to finish eighth after a bad qualifying. Stroll has a very good result in ninth, especially when you consider how bad of a time Alonso had this weekend. Ninth place, very good for Stroll. Yuki picking up 10th, another good point for the team. Magnussen and Hulkenberg had a fantastic race this weekend, but alas, no points for them there. 11th from 12th, and no penalty points for Magnussen yet either. So there you go. He will appear at Monaco. Ricciardo was 13th, Ocon 14th, Zhou 15th, Gasly 16th, Sargent 17th, Bottas in 18th. Alonso had to settle for 19th place. He was the last of the finishers, with Albon retiring the car, a DNF for him, in what was quite a fun race, especially towards the end. It had its ups and downs, but I think this is a good sign of where we're going, and I think Monaco next weekend will be incredibly fun. So, we'll be back tomorrow for driver ratings, and then, of course, next week, it is all things Monaco. Once again, we'll have Formula 1, Formula 2, and Formula 3. It's the best qualifying of the year. The cars are looking really close. I think we could have a surprise pole position, and who knows, maybe even a surprise winner. All of that to come next week, so make sure you subscribe for it. We can discuss it all you want in the comments down below. Until then, though, have a good one. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.